So, thank you, Danny. Thank you, Javi, for inviting me to give this talk. And also thank you, Giorgio, for the introduction to React. Now I can just skip it. Well, actually, I haven't prepared it because I assumed everybody knows React. So I don't know why. Okay, so this talk is called A Journey into CSS in JS, because at first I was going to tell a story about how I came into using CSS inside JavaScript for my side projects, but this kind of changed over the weeks. So it's basically a name, you can just stick to the CSS in JS, and that's it. I mean, it's a talk about CSS in JS. So who am I? My name is Rude. I'm working as a front-end engineer at Xing. And yeah, I've been doing CSS for around 12 years now. And I started 12 years ago using vanilla CSS. It's basically just like anybody else some years ago. And I moved then to a more complicated setup based on less. Then I went to, I guess some of you also followed this path. I came to use Sass and Compass, then Sass plus autoprefixer because I started using Sass, the libsass version of Sass, so no Compass there. But autoprefixer did the job because actually Compass was just being used to autoprefix anyway. Then I totally ditched Sass, mostly in my side projects again, and I started only using post-CSS plugins or packages of plugins. So a while ago, a year ago more or less, I started playing with JavaScript applications. Mostly I was focusing on learning React. And my main stack to work with CSS in React was based on post-CSS also. I was using CSS Next because I was really into the idea of just doing CSS like we are going to do it in 5 years. So it's nice. I mean, you just don't write another thing that's not CSS, just CSS. And then I checked on the CSS modules thing, and it's actually quite nice. So I started using it. So this was my environment. This was my stack. And what happened, it's some months ago, the Facebook team released Create React App. I don't know if anybody here knows about this. It's basically a tool to generate React application environments. It's kind of like Yeoman, but only for React. But it does a few more things. It gives you a development server, a local development server. It gives you hot module reloading. It gives you transpiling of JavaScript ES6 using Babel. It gives you, it handles public assets in a kind of a simple way. And it gives you a testing environment using Jest. And all of that, it does with zero build configuration. So you don't have to touch a line of configuration. You just start dropping JavaScript there. I have a note here that says, apologize for introducing JS fatigue in a CSS meetup. So, okay. So, going back again to the previous slide, one of the main pain points of this stack was that I had to handle tooling configuration, mainly Webpack. And Webpack, well, it's actually a little difficult to get in. So I began searching for a new styling solution, and that's when I started looking at CSS in JavaScript. I guess all of you know, that means writing CSS styles inside your JavaScript components. So can I say raise your hands if you think or used to think this is a bad idea. See, I used to think it. Yeah. So it's basically because of the separation of concerns, right? You separate the styles from the logic and from the layout. So separation of concerns, you may chant, well, I've separated my concerns for 10 years and now I'm too scared to touch my CSS. That's a tweet from Jordan Scales, which is an engineer at Khan Academy. And he actually has a point here. And well, I felt a little, like this guy. But yeah, when you think, when I didn't know much about CSS in JavaScript, but most of what I knew or what I heard was also mentioning inline styles. So it's it takes some faith to get in, but once you get into it, you get to see what it means. And there's actually a misconception. So inline styles, the misconception says that it always means using the DOM.style API, when the reality is many inline styles libraries work by injecting CSS rule sheets. That's from Dan Abramov, which is the creator of Redux. I don't know if you know it. More JavaScript fatigue for you. Creator of Redux, now it's working on the Facebook team on the core of React. So I guess you know, but and Giorgio also told us, this is inline styles and this is an injected rule sheet. And these are the most popular solutions for writing CSS inside JavaScript. There's Radium, Aphrodite, JSS, Glamour, and this is actually from this last Thursday, and kind of this is guilty of making me change most of my slides. Well, yeah, but there's a lot of libraries out there to write CSS inside JavaScript. It's like we are looking for something. There's a pattern out there. So what are the main benefits of writing CSS inside your JavaScript compared to regular CSS? The first one we already covered before. You get scope styles. Most of the libraries do this scoping of styles. So you get less collisions. You don't actually need deeply nested selectors, although you can do it. And you can avoid using complex naming structures. You don't need Ben, as Giorgio said, or you don't need anything more than a few words. You get a much more expressive code. That means that you actually have to define what it does. There's no magic or hidden things inside there. So you get to export and import modules and modules, third-party modules or your own modules, reuse constants. You get to generate rule sheets with basic JavaScript functions, and you can also calculate values dynamically because you're basically using the runtime to generate your styles. There's also an easiness of refactor here, because you get much more explicit code. Again, it's just JavaScript. You have to define what it does. You get to locate the dependencies easily, and one really cool point is that that code never gets to the browser. So if you don't use a class, that's never in the browser. It's in your code, but that never reaches the browser. So there's no dead code there. You also, if you're used to JavaScript, you can share everything. You can use the same values for CSS and JavaScript, and you can share it across components, and even across projects. You can stick a package of values in a Git repository or an npm package and just include it in all your projects, and you're good to go. And the one that actually is solving my problem with Webpack, first world problems. You don't have to handle build tools. I mean, there's no config. There is just JavaScript, and you don't need to actually configure tooling. And one last thing for those that are interested, as it is just JavaScript that you actually parse, it's cross-platform. I mean, you can use it in native environments. So you get all these benefits, and it's kind of cool. But I mean, I had to know something. I mean, I have to be sure that I wanted to get into this world actually. So I had some basic requirements, and those were. It had to. I mean, the solution that I choose, it had to support the full CSS specification. I mean, I can do anything with CSS using normal CSS. So I don't want to lose hovers. I don't want to lose font face. I don't want to lose keyframes. So it had to support everything CSS. It had to allow global styles, because scoping is nice, but I actually need the cascades sometimes. I need to inherit some things. It had to do automatic prefixing, because I've been doing it for like 4 years. So why stop now? And another important point, it had to be performant, because JavaScript sometimes equals not performant. And all of that, it had to do with no magic. I mean, I don't want hidden files here and there in the components or elsewhere. And basically no magic. I'm already dealing with Rails at work, so please, no more. Okay, so where the approach is, the actual solutions here. There's Radium. Radium is from one. It's a team called Formidable Labs. This presentation is actually a React component, a set of React components that are built by these guys. If I show you the source code, it's filled with all these components. And Radium is actually the most popular library because it was first. It uses a decorator, an ES7 decorator, to inject the styles. And it looks like this. I mean, you basically do an object with all your styles, like JavaScript styles, JSON styles, just like you did in jQuery, I guess. Then you use the decorator for Radium, and then you create your component. Thank you, Giorgio, again, for explaining how React works. So yeah, this is all based on React. Sorry. So yeah, you use the style prop here, and that means that it uses inline styles. So yeah, it's easy more or less to work with, but in the end, you are hitting the browser with inline styles, and that is not performant. So Radium was out. Then you had Aphrodite, which is from the Khan Academy. So you can be sure it's going to have some maintenance and it's going to be good inside, right? And it uses functions instead of a wrapper, decorator. And it looks like this. It's quite similar, but instead of defining the object directly, you use a function, a helper. It's basically the API for Aphrodite. And you basically create the styles, and then you use them in the class name prop with another function. And that is basically handling all the scoping and stuff like that. Then you have JSS, which was actually my weapon of choice for 2 weeks, I guess. Yeah. I'm I mean, I've been using CSS in JS for like a month and a half. So yeah, I'm so yeah, focused now. So JSS, I mean, it's kind of good because it also uses a wrapper to include the classes. It's a simpler one, not like the Aphrodite one. It injects rule sheets before rendering, which is kind of impressive. I mean, the components don't load, actually don't get to the screen if the styles are not there, so you don't get these flashes of unstyled content. And it has plugins, just like PostCSS, which is super nice because you can extend your styles however you want. And you write it like this. You basically define the styles more or less like in Radium, because you have to actually define the class names here, and you apply all these styles with this higher order component, which is basically a wrapper function. And what this does is basically creating this prop entry, which is the classes, the sheet.classes. It's basically a container with all the class names that it generates, and then in the background, what it's doing is generating all these rule sheets and injecting those in the head of the page. And one thing that JSS did that it made me feel like I needed to use this one, I mean, it was the best one for me, was this plugin that I cannot stress how good it is JSS Compose. And this is kind of cool. This is inspired in CSS modules, actually. And CSS modules give you this new property for the selectors, which is compose. And you can basically extend, per se, classes. But it's not like the extend in Sass. We can see it now, because I have an example. You can have a sort of utilities. It's like maybe you can write this display styles utilities. It's basically display flex, display block, display inline block, whatever, and have those inside a file. Then you can import that file inside a component, and you can compose it here. And what this does, I mean, you're defining the wrap class and then composing flex, and actually defining the max width for this wrap, and you basically use wrap. You're not using flex. You're using the one that you're defining here, and this is the output. So you get your flex class, which is scoped, your wrap class only defining the max width, and then, given that you can modify actually what's the output in the class, it gets the flex and the wrap class together. I mean, and all of that you do from your CSS, which is super cool, because you get you get less CSS declarations, because you can actually use, let's say you use, I don't know, base CSS or tachyons or something like that, a library with useful, functional CSS utilities. And those actually can be used like this. So you get less CSS. So better download sizes. It's easier to maintain. It's a much more expressive code. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool. I mean, basically. So yeah, one thing that we mentioned earlier is, and that probably most of you are seeing and you don't like, is that we are using this kind of declarations, right? So it's not super friendly. And this kind of goes with this other tweet by Pete Hunt that says, CSSConf taught me a few things. The first one is the React world, in this case JavaScript world, needs to build more bridges to the CSS world. And I guess there's two folks that were moved by this tweet and created this thing. which is style components. It's the last hype in the CSS in JS world. The authors are Max Toiber and Glenn Madden, kind of famous in React world. So style component uses ES6 tag template literals, which is kind of new to ES6. It uses a common CSS syntax, so you don't have to use these camel-cased properties. And it has something super cool, which is theme and support. And I can show you what's that in a few seconds. So this is what style components look like. So all the code that we've seen before, this 7, 8 lines from all the other solutions, is here. I mean, this library is using this kind of wrappers. This is kind of like 70% of the full API. You get like 3 functions and you do everything with that. So here you're basically creating the component and styling it. So it's basically like at the same time you are defining a class, the things that depend on that class, and creating the component all at the same time. Then you just use link as a component. Super cool. So this is the stemming thing that I told you before. So this is like the declaration of a theme. So you get it's like sets of variables per se. So you set the name of the theme, you set I mean in this case main color and accent color, and then you define your component like this. It's not full here, but yeah, you're basically saying that the color is the one that comes from the theme, or if no theme is set, you set it to white. The same with a hover color. So this is how you apply this theme. I mean, if no theme is applied, then this is a normal button. It's white. It's the default. And if you wrap this component or a component that has inside this component, it's gonna inherit this theme. So it's, I mean, maybe you're not seeing the value now, but I can assure you at work, I would really, I mean, it will really come in handy. There's some downsides. I mean, it's kind of early to adopt this like in a global scale. But yeah, I mean, debugging can be a little tricky. I mean, it's kind of young technology, and there's kind of little to none source maps involved. So with the scoped classes being generated, it's kind of a mess. But I mean, you have React Dev tools and stuff like that that can help. And it's also not so friendly with editors. I mean, it's now in the works for Sublime Text, and Atom already has syntax highlighting, but if you use packages like, I don't know, Emmet or something like that to write styles fast, I mean, I still have to hack it a little to see if I can get it working. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend you to try it out and decide for yourself. And I wanted to finish with this other tweet by Oleg. This is the creator of JSS. And he says CSS in JS is in simple projects is like driving a sports car in the city. You don't need that power, but it feels incredibly good. I mean, and it actually, I mean, it's super easy to get involved. I mean, if you're using React, I mean, it's super easy. And if you have tried Create React App, it's super nice and super simple. So, thanks everyone. If you have any questions.
example that you show, you are creating an anchor tag.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
In style components, you mean?
Yeah, the last one. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, right. How do I define like an href attribute, for example, in here? Is it possible?
I mean, this is basically creating the component. So
yeah.
Here, you would say simply length href.
And so I can.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a shift you have to make. But actually, if you take some simple component that you already have built and migrate it to this technology, I mean, you're sold in 5 seconds. It's like super easy.
But it can only create like simple text. If I need a bigger component.
Yeah, but it's basically like creating classes, but you're not only creating a class that you're gonna set inside a class name. Okay. You're basically setting it's like creating a new component, and that extends another component. So it's basically like taking out the class name prop.
Yep.
So you basically write the class name as the name of the component,
okay.
And everything else is just the same. Just the same. And if you want to, if you need to, for example, I don't know, this is mostly for styles, but if you want to, for example, add a method or something from the life cycle, like component did mount or something like that, you just write link dot component did mount and then set the contents of the function. So it's super easy. It's super clean code what you get.
So what about passing function to the component?
That's the last thing I said. It's you can just say link dot name of the function equals the function, and then you have it there. It's just like saying putting all the declaration of the class of React and.
It's like I'm not really like good at React right now, but it's like you're passing like the functions to the props. So
yeah.
If I'm accessing that function from the props, where I can get it from there, like if I'm passing from the parent, for example.
Well, you actually have it in the arguments. Not in the arguments, but in the contents of the function. So you can access it via link dot the name of the prop. It's just like that. And there's also, you get the prop passed here. So you can also do some things with functions here. So yeah. You can do it, but it's a little weird if it's not for styling. They have some examples in their website. You can check, and this is not. You can also extend already created components. So imagine that you have this component here, and it already has some things inside, and you have functions and lifecycle stuff inside. You can then say exported component equals a styled component, and then you drop the styles in. So you can do it after you've created the component. If that's what you want to do, it's as easy as that. So you can do not only .a here, but you can use it as a function. You can replace the .a here with parentheses, name of the component, and then you are basically applying these styles to that component. So you can do it afterwards. Anything else?
Yeah, can you go back to the creation of the component? The slide before. So we're dropping classes here, and then we cannot reuse classes, I guess. How would you go and create, for example, a button that is big main or primary?
I would say
different styles for each combination, or do you need to create a button component surrounded by a big component surrounded by a primary component?
You can use you can do two things. You can use this approach, which is, here we're using themes, but you can say I'm creating a button and setting like 3 variations, which are small, medium, and big. So you can just create button and then just pass a prop that says big, small, or medium, and then you handle it from inside the styles. Or you can say, I create the button with the base styles, and then I create another one of these declarations that instead of styling a button, a normal button, styles the original button that you created, and you call it like button small, and it's a component named button small. Yeah, it's basically you create a lot of components this way, but it's kind of performant. I mean, it's not affecting performance of the page, and you get a clear naming structure, and it's super easy to use. It's kind of a mind shift. Huh?
It's like working. You're actually
Yeah.
styling and already component.
Yeah. I mean, and you can also ask me later because timing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.